Give it up for JP, everybody. He's done about 20 TEDx talks in between all us today. And nobody said anything about it. I was going, that guy's brilliant, but he's getting loads of time on here. And I came into the room today and I was watching all the people talking, and they were all really businesslike and really good and really brave, because I do this every week. And if anybody's in that works for the tax office or the DHSS, it's all voluntary. I don't get paid for any of it. And I've loads of kids, so I don't want to lose the tax credits, you know. But Jason met me in Andytown in the middle of West Belfast, where I'm from. And he was like, Paddy, do you want to do a TEDx? I went, what is it? And he told me. And I went, do I fit into that? I don't know, because I come from West Belfast. But I says, do me one favour. I says, I want you to put me in a room that has 8 upside-down hot tubs on the ceilings. And not all of them, just 4 of them. I want to have like a real big crystal, not real, but chandelier hanging down. But don't turn them lights on, because they're looking really expensive. I want you to put real cheap ones, like Christmas lights, but not different colours, on the ceiling. And I want you to get the best looking people you can get and put them in the room to be my audience. Look, he got the first 2 things. And I'm happy enough. But I come from West Belfast. Specifically, I come from a wee place called Divis Flats. And everybody thought we were minted because we had a helicopter pad. For people in the room that doesn't know it, that wasn't ours. But now it's dead strange, because I'm on a stage that says Black Mountain. And I've done well. I don't live in Divis anymore. I live on Black Mountain. So I now look down on Divis Flats, where I come from. And I'm going to tell you a story about how losing a finger was the start of my life. Because people here would associate losing a finger or a traumatic experience as being the end. But it wasn't for me. So this is a story about how I went from being a husband, a daddy, a joinery business owner, an ordinary fella from West Belfast that actually done the door in here, was security in this hotel to pay for a wedding. And in 2007, I was 27 years of age. I was probably doing well for myself in terms of being from West Belfast. I was buying a brand new house at over £300,000. I had the lovely BMW in the driveway. I worked 12-hour shifts on a building site. I had a son. We just got married in May. And on July the 27th, 2007, while working as a doorman, I had part of my finger bitten off in a violent altercation. And some people would see that as a wee tiny bit of loss. It was a wee tiny bit of loss. But it wasn't the loss of the finger that affected me the most. It was this inside my head, because I lost who I was. Every single person in here can identify themselves, mostly by the job they do. People have stood up and said, oh, I'm a teacher, I'm a doctor, I'm a taxi driver, whatever you are. See, when you lost that identity, where do you go from there? And I didn't just go on the recovery of trying to help my finger be better, because I lost my business. I wasn't able to pick up my son at 9 months old, and we've heard lots of that today. Martin McGahan talking about his son having a heart problem, and I'm thinking, all I couldn't do was lift my son. But these are all things that you need to use to push on, and that's what happened to me. And I grew up in a society and a family where storytelling was something that happened on a daily basis. Every Thursday night, we would go to my granny's house and listen to stories about her growing up, working in the mills in Belfast, and that was a big part of my life. And what actually happened was it took 4 years for the court case to go into court for the man that bit my finger off. And my wife watched me going from a very successful businessman to a guy that couldn't get up in the morning and tie shoelaces. And I mean, I couldn't do that. I didn't know where I was. I was lost in life, never mind in work. And on the day that we went to court after 4 years, I don't know what it was about my wife, and I need to thank her for everything we have today. I need to thank her for me being alive, because she seen that if I went into court and the verdict didn't go my way, which it didn't, that I would go into a further spiral, that I maybe wouldn't continue on living. So what she done was she looked up stand-up comedy, because she knew that I was the life and soul of the party, that I was always the one that made everybody laugh. But after this event, I was that no more. So she thought, let me take him to stand-up comedy, let him see some comedy tonight. And she Googled stand-up comedy Belfast on a Monday night. Around the Monday night, the 1st of November, 2011. And she brought me there. And when I get into that room, I just thought I was going to a crap comedy night. I thought I was going to a room with 35 people who were all trying this for the first time. And something happened. The guy called my name out and asked me to come on stage. Now think about that. I couldn't tie my shoelaces. I wasn't in a very good place. But when he said my name, something made me stand up and get on stage. And I've told this many times, this story. When I done stand-up comedy for the first time and I made people laugh in the room, like I'd done at the very start that I haven't done since, right? The feeling I got from making people laugh, drugs couldn't make me feel that way. Nothing in life made me feel that way. And from that day on, I said, I need to do that again. And I drove all over this country for nothing, for months, doing stand-up comedy because I was addicted. I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. I didn't see it as a job. I didn't see it as my future. I just seen it as like a hobby that you would pick up. And a lot of people do that because therapy doesn't just happen in some doctor's office. It happens sometimes when you listen to music or you start painting or you start doing something that you love. And that's what happened with me with comedy. And then eventually, after 8 months of doing it, people noticed me and decided, he's good at that. And I got paid for the first time. And now you have this guy standing on here that's talking to you today, to a guy that on the 12th of May, 2023, sold out the local arena, SSE. And I've done it 5 times. Out the back of the SSE, when you do it, you get a plaque on the wall. It's the Wall of Fame. And I'm in between Snoop Dogg and Elton John. That's an image that I don't want to imagine. You know, Snoop Dogg would be wanting to put something in your mouth, and Elton John, well, he'd be singing you a song now. I wasn't going to say anything. But my point is that sometimes you will have something bad in your life. You'll be in a chapter in your life that you're like, oh my God, this is terrible. Where am I going to go from here? Don't see it as the end. See it as something that's going to make you stronger, because that's what I done. I made it stronger for me. And laughter, nobody understands laughter in the world. They haven't worked it out yet, but it stops stress, it helps people. And what I was selling on stage was humanity, because I tell stories about having kids, being married, and every single person that done that today on this stage, every one of us laughed and had a smile because we can relate to it. And I think that's the thing that you need to know. Now, one of the things that happened to me, I got very friendly with an older man in Belfast who was a taxi driver. And me and him got friendly. He told me he had 4 daughters. I could relate to that. He was telling me the experience you'll have when they go on to have boyfriends and stuff. And he disappeared for 8 weeks, and nobody had seen him. And he came to me one day, and he says, Paddy, can we go for a coffee? And I says, get a cup of tea, and we'll sit in the taxi. He says, no, can we go to an actual cafe and sit down? And we did. And he looked me in the eye, and he says, Paddy, the reason you haven't seen me in 8 weeks is 9 weeks ago, I got diagnosed with cancer. And I've only 5 weeks left to live. Now, at that point, somebody who's your friend that tells you that, or somebody who you love tells you that, you put your arm around them. I don't deal with trauma and stuff like that. I always try and find the funny side. I know. And to this day, I don't know why I done it. But when he said to me, I've only 5 weeks left to live, I said to him, what's the tires like on your taxi? Now, he didn't laugh. He pushed all the coffee off the table and he left the room. And I got home and I was sitting at the house and my wife was like, what are you doing here? And I told her what happened. And she says to me, you're a fucker. I'm like, you're my wife, you're meant to, support me. And she went, no. Do you not remember with my daddy? We were told 9 weeks. He only lasted 3. You have to leave this house now. Go and see that man and tell him you're sorry because he mightn't have 5 weeks, Paddy. And I'm like, I'll do it next week. No, you'll do it now. I get up that night, and I don't feel scared. I don't get nervous. But that night, walking towards his front door, I was nervous. I was panicking. I rapped the door and his wife opened it. She grabbed me by the throat. She says, I've been with him from I was 15 years of age. I love that man with all my heart. And the way you made him feel today, I will never forgive you. And she pushed me into the living room. And when we get in there, his 4 daughters were there, and they were ready to kill me. And I was like, I'm going to lose my life tonight in Springfield Park. And he was standing there, and he says, Paddy, I love you like the son I never had. He says, but the way you made me feel today was terrible. He says, I came home here, you were the first person outside the family I told. And I came home here, and I was in a terrible state, and they all came in out of work, and they were all going, what did he say? And then Bernie came in, which was his daughter, and she doesn't work, she wears her jammies to the spar. And she smokes sparkly fags are the size of a snooker cue. And she says, nobody was taking me serious. And I grabbed my daddy and I went, Daddy, what did he say? And he turned around and he says, what's the tires like on your taxi? And Bernie started laughing. And then Anthony started laughing. And he looked at me and he says, for the first time in 9 weeks, you made us laugh. And it made us realize that we have only 5 weeks left to live. Why are we crying every day? We should be laughing and celebrating what we have left. And he put his arms around me and he told me he loved me. And I got to know that man that night more than I ever would have. And I think the story I'm trying to say is laughter's a great medicine. But I also want us to know that if you're going through a hard time right now, it's only the start of your journey. You need to see how you can use that bad scenario to bring you on to something that you were meant to do. And that's the story of Paddy McDonnell. Thank you very much.